In the annals of the Adeptus Astartes, few origins are as fraught with suspicion and fire as that of the Sons of Medusa. They were not born in the light of triumph, nor in the shadows of catastrophe, but from the searing divide of ideological warfare, a rift so deep it fractured one of the Imperium's most unyielding space marine legions. The Iron Hands, sons of Manus, had always been devotees of logic, strength, and the cold assurance of iron. Yet, in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy and the Age of Apostasy, even these iron-willed warriors fell prey to a crisis of belief. The galaxy reeled from theological chaos, and within this maelstrom rose a doctrine that would split the Iron Hands to their core. It was called the Moirae Schism. It began with a whisper, a subtle interpretation of the machine god's will, birthed on the forge world of Moirae. Tech priests there began to claim prophetic insight through patterns observed in the flicker of the Astronomicon. They believed the Emperor's light revealed not only the pathway through the warp, but the shape of the future itself. These heretics saw the Emperor not just as a divine being, but as a messianic convergence of flesh and machine, a harbinger of unity between the Omnissiah and the Imperial Creed. Many in the Iron Hands, already more mechanicus than marine, listened. It started with doctrine. Then it became ritual. Then it became dogma. The leaders of the Iron Council saw the peril. The Moirae cult was expanding, infiltrating even their hallowed fortress monastery on Medusa. Some war clans tolerated it, others embraced it, and some demanded its complete eradication. Civil war among the Iron Hands was unthinkable, and yet it loomed. Lines were drawn, brothers eyed each other across forge fires. Thanes debated the sanctity of belief against the purity of iron. The cult Mechanicus itself watched nervously, unsure whether to denounce the Moirae adherents or secretly support them. In the end, it was Manus's legacy that decided the matter. The Iron Hands remembered the treachery of Istvan V and knew what lay at the end of internecine war. And so, exile, a compromise forged in desperation. The adherents of the Moirae Schism, those who would not renounce their belief in the Emperor as the machine messiah of prophecy, were cast out. But they did not go in disgrace. No, they left in silence and in steel. They took with them fleets, armor, and the cold certainty of purpose. They swore no hatred toward their former brethren, only an oath that they would never raise a bolter against the Iron Hands unless first fired upon. In this grim farewell there was no warmth, only understanding. Both sides believed they were preserving the Legion's legacy. Both believed themselves righteous. The exiles sailed into the void. Records show they did not wander aimlessly, nor seek solitude. Instead, they threw themselves into war. During the early centuries of MM37, the Imperium writhed in the throes of political fracture. The Nova Terra Interregnum had torn the Segmentum Solar apart. Multiple High Lords, rival terrae, conflicting edicts, and planetary governors vying for dominance under the guise of imperial continuity. It was here, amid blood and betrayal, that the exiles found purpose. The High Lords, those of the recognized Terra, began the Great Cull. It was a sanctioned purge of the traitors and false imperial agents that had risen during the Interregnum. Loyal chapters, inquisitorial agents, and sanctioned assassins were given absolute authority to destroy these enemies of unity. The exiled Iron Hands, though not yet formally named, answered the call. Where others hesitated, they struck. Where others deliberated, they executed. They became the Emperor's mailed fist, hammering down on rogue governors, breakaway fleets, and corrupted Mechanicus enclaves. Their zeal was unmatched. Entire planetary populations were pacified or exterminated under their judgment. And always they fought not for forgiveness, but for validation. They would prove their worth in war. If their beliefs were true, if the Moirae prophecy was part of the Emperor's greater design, then they would succeed. And if they failed, they would be extinguished, as all heresies are. But they did not fail. Reports from the Great Kull speak of green-armored warriors descending from orbit in silence. Of fleet action so precise they split pirate armadas in a single coordinated strike. Of tech marines who dismantled enemy defenses and turned them upon their creators. Of dreadnoughts wreathed in iron flame marching through hives as saints of death. In 011 M37, the decision was made. They would be recognized, not as Iron Hands, not as renegades, but as a new chapter. They were named the Sons of Medusa. It was a name chosen not in sentiment, but in symbolism. Medusa, the cold, storm-racked homeworld of the Iron Hands, still haunted their souls. They were no longer of its clans, no longer welcome on its stone and snow. But they were still forged in its hardship, still echoes of Ferrus Manus's will. The Sons of Medusa were declared a successor chapter, granted status under the Codex Astartes, with their own heraldry and command structure. The Council of Three was formed, a triumvirate of war leaders to replace the singular chapter master. The war clans of Megara, Atropos, and Lachesis emerged, and with them, the Chamber Ferrum, the heart of their sacred tech ministry. Their armor was painted a defiant emerald, their helmets a stark white. Their badge was the Medusan skull wreathed in mechadendrites, not as a token of the past, but as a warning to the future. They had been born in fire, forged in schism, and now they had purpose. The Imperium watched, some whispered of danger. The Mechanicus eyed them with suspicion. The Iron Hands did not speak of them, but the Sons of Medusa did not ask for approval. They would earn it. Not in words, but in the roar of bolters, the scream of fusion engines, and the silence that followed total annihilation. They were no longer exiles. They were a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, and they had work to do. There is no single voice that speaks for the Sons of Medusa, no throne upon which one lord sits and rules. Instead, from the cold depths of the Tylus system, command is shared by a triumvirate of iron-bound warlords, three masters whose judgment is final, whose voices shape the warpath of an entire chapter. They are the Iron Thanes. Where other chapters are structured around a chapter master whose word is law, the Sons of Medusa stand apart. This is not an accident of culture nor a symptom of rebellion. It is the echo of their birth. They were born from division, forged by exiles who refused to bow to one vision of truth. And so, from their earliest days, they resolved never again to vest supreme authority in a single soul. Three war clans arose: Megara, Atropos, and Lachesis, each with its own history, character, and sphere of command, each a co-equal branch of the sun's strength, and over each, an Iron Thane. To outsiders, it is an unusual arrangement, one viewed with suspicion or confusion. But within the chapter, the Iron Triumvirate is gospel. It is not chaos, it is balance. Strength divided is not weakened. When all three arms strike in unison, the force is irresistible. The first Iron Thanes were chosen not by lineage, but by merit. Warriors whose blend of martial prowess and technological mastery reflected the twin soul of the chapter. Each led a great Exodus fleet during the early purges of the Great Kull, and when recognition from Terra was finally granted, they became the anchors of a new order. Thane Alaxis of Magiera was the spear, a master of precision strikes, orbital assaults, and overwhelming force delivered with flawless timing. Megara quickly developed a reputation as the sun's bleeding edge, the first to strike, the first to suffer casualties, the first to rebuild. Its warriors are bold, many even arrogant, and their pride is matched only by their performance in battle. Thane Drenmak of Atropos was the hammer, a grim, calculating presence, more machine than man by the time the Great Kull ended. His clan specializes in siege warfare and attritional combat. They do not shatter worlds, they unmake them. When Atropos goes to war, their arrival is heralded by the endless rumble of tracked vehicles, the growl of siege mortars, and the silent judgment of contemptuous dreadnoughts. It is said that no wall stands long against them, only tombs. Then there was Thane Tassadar of Lachesis, the ghost, the scholar general, the quiet fury beneath a steel mask. Lachesis mastered infiltration, reconquest, and post-crusade cleansing. They are the watchers in the dark, the ones who root out cults in their infancy and destroy fledgling rebellions before they take their first breath. Where Megara blinds the enemy with flame and Atropos crushes bone, Lachesis slips in the knife before the enemy even knows they are bleeding. Together, these three forge the identity of the Sons of Medusa, not a singular beast, but a trident of war. The Iron Triumvirate became more than mere council, it became tradition. As the centuries passed, the Thanes remained the linchpins of command, each overseeing a third of the chapter's strength, its resources, and its sacred technology. And it is not just a division of arms. The war clans differ in belief, in interpretation, in how they express their loyalty to the Emperor and the Omnissiah. Megara is fervent in its rites, its chaplains and tech priests, speaking in machine code prayers between battles. Atropos is blunt, brutal, more iron hands than perhaps any other, their reverence for the machine spirit expressed in relentless modification and cybernetic transcendence. Lachesis, by contrast, walks a more cryptic path, their records locked in algorithmic lexicons that even the Mechanicus find hard to parse. There are moments of friction, as there must be. Not all Thanes agree. Not all clans move in perfect harmony. But when the Council of Thanes convenes, when they stand within the chamber of circuit steel beneath the monastery of Telus, decisions are made with iron certainty, and once they speak, the chapter obeys without hesitation. Each Thane is more than a battlefield commander. They are living relics, repositories of wisdom and doctrine, chosen not by vote but by legacy. When a Thane dies, his replacement is chosen not by popularity or tradition, but by trial, combat, devotion. A successor must be proven in the fires of war and the sanctums of steel. Take, for example, Valand Kal, Iron Thane of Atropos during the Badab War. Kal was not simply a leader. He was an embodiment of the Thane ideal. A towering presence clad in artificer armor inscribed with binary blessings and kill tallies stretching back 1,000 years. He led not just as a general, but as a symbol, one who brought unity to the Triumvirate, even as the chapter divided itself across a dozen war fronts. His strategies are still studied within the chapter and even beyond, grim templates of victory through attrition and calculated sacrifice. The Triumvirate model also allows the chapter to remain flexible in a way many others cannot. When one Thane's forces are overextended, the others may compensate. When a crisis emerges, one clan may act swiftly without waiting for centralized approval. It is a redundancy born of necessity, a structure where no one failure can collapse the whole. And beneath the Thanes, the structure replicates itself. Each clan possesses its own cadre of captains, tech marines, apothecaries, and chaplains. Each maintains its own relics, rituals, and specialized armories. Their fleets are distinct, their forge praetors insular, their doctrines unique. But all answer to the Triumvirate. Some outsiders mistake this for division. They believe the Sons of Medusa to be fragmented, disjointed, barely restrained from fratricide. They are wrong. Because when the three Thanes speak as one, when the green of Megara, the iron of Atropos, and the silence of Lachesis march beneath the same star, it is as if the entire chapter is reborn. Their weapons sink, their drop pods fall in perfect timing, their dreadnoughts roar in sequence, their kill teams cover each other without need for command. They are not three clans, they are one blade with three edges, and in the hands of the Emperor they cut through the galaxy like lightning across a void storm. This trifold command has proven itself across 10,000 battlefields and 24 crusades. It is more than hierarchy, it is identity. The Sons of Medusa do not need a single voice to lead them. Their strength lies in plurality, in the perfect balance between aggression, endurance, and intellect. It is this balance that has carried them through disaster and victory alike. And it is this balance that ensures that, no matter how far the Imperium falls, the Sons of Medusa will remain. Three heads, one will, bound by oath, forged in fire, commanded by steel. There is no homeworld, no sacred mountain where battle brothers chant litanies to the wind, no shrine of ancient relics nestled in forests or under desert suns. The Sons of Medusa cast aside the notion of a planetary cradle long ago. To them, the stars are home, steel is sanctuary, and drifting at the edge of a dying system, wreathed in silence and flame, is tireless. It is not a world in the traditional sense. The tireless monastery is a fortress of stone and iron, carved across the inner asteroid belt of a cold, forgotten star system in the segmentum obscurus. Long ago, Mechanicus mining operations had stripped the inner planets bare and abandoned the belt to the void. The exiled Sons of Medusa, still bleeding from the schism that birthed them, came upon this shattered place and did not see ruin. They saw potential. What others abandoned, they reforged. They took asteroid after asteroid, hollowing them with precision melta charges and turning their frozen cores into forge hearths. Massive monolithic bastions were erected upon drifting rocks, linked by orbital train chains, cyclopean void bridges, and fusion rail lines invisible from the void, but screaming with power when active. They created a fortress monastery unlike any other, a segmented, decentralized bastion that cannot be taken in a single strike. Each of the war clans, Megara, Atropos, and Lachesis, was granted their own domain. Each asteroid they claimed became an anvil upon which warriors were forged, where armor was shaped, and where the rites of the chapter were maintained in sacred ritual. Megara's station is called Iron Helix, a massive weapon forge wreathed in green flame and plasma vents. Atropos claims Void Bastion, a bunker fortress built around a derelict Mechanicus weapons testing station, now converted into a cathedral of war machines. Lachesis, ever the shadowy hand of the triumvirate, dwells in Black Prism, an intelligence and espionage nexus with databanks said to rival those of inquisitorial watch forts. The center of it all is the Oculus, a station moon that serves as the central hub of the Sun's command structure. Here, the Iron Triumvirate meets in silence and code, debating the future of the chapter within chambers, whose walls hum with encoded prayers and machine logic so complex it is said to make lesser tech priests weep from overload. The Oculus houses the chapter's central hall of remembrance, its reliquaries, and the sacred forge temples of the Chamber Ferrum. To set foot upon its steel floors is to feel the heart of the Sons of Medusa pulse beneath your boots. But Tylus is not static. It is alive. It moves. Unlike most fortress monasteries which root themselves in one place and weather the tides of war, Tylus is a fortress built for mobility. The asteroids upon which the chapter has staked its domain are mounted with vast plasma engines and gravity drives. Should the need arise, Tylus can scatter like a storm of iron, its component fortresses becoming separate bastions across entire sectors. And when the call of war grows urgent, they can converge again like a great leviathan, eclipsing lesser fleets with their mass and fury. It is this mobility that has kept the chapter resilient across the millennia. Many have sought to map Tylus. All have failed. The Imperium itself does not possess a definitive cartograph of the entire system. Only the Iron Thanes, the senior magi of the Chamber Ferrum, and a handful of high-ranking captains know the precise coordinates of all Tylus segments at any one time. To those outside, it is a myth, a specter, a stronghold that appears only in the final moments before planetary judgment is rendered. To attack Tylus is to fight against the void itself. Defensive armaments are embedded into every asteroid facet, every station hull, every bridge between forge bastions. Defense grids layered with ancient plasma tech, automated macro laser emplacements, and relic void shield arrays looted from long-lost Blackstone relics. Tylus does not merely repel invaders, it unravels them. And yet, for all its might, the true strength of Tylus is not in its weapons, but in its soul. It is a monument to the chapter's creed. Every corridor is lined with statues of faceless warriors, their bodies half flesh, half machine, silently observing all who pass. Sermon scrolls hang from the walls, strips of parchment with litanies etched in binary and ink, some blood-written, others burned into steel. The walls themselves are adorned with mechanicus sigils intertwined with the iconography of the Astartes, forming a hybrid design that would make the Martian triumvirate wince in discomfort. Servitors hum ceaselessly through the arteries of the station, maintaining the balance of the forge engines and reciting catechisms in endless loops. Tech Marines of the Chamber Ferrum maintain their sacred work here, surrounded by cogitator banks, iron sarcophagi, and plasma crucibles glowing hot with newly forged bolters. The forge priests here do not merely craft weapons, they resurrect relics thought lost to time. Leviathan dreadnoughts, ancient grav tanks, and exterminatus-grade shells wait in stasis chambers like sleeping titans, ready to be called forth when the galaxy shudders in need. The aspirants of the chapter walk these halls in silence. Here, silence is respect. Noise is for battle. Serenity is for preparation. Only when the litany of iron is spoken aloud in unison, hundreds of throats chanting in mechanical cadence, does the stillness break. It is a sound that resonates in the soul, like 1,000 furnaces stoking a single righteous flame. Tylus is not just a fortress, it is a crucible. It is here that initiates are brought to be transformed, not merely trained, but reforged, mind, body, and faith. Each new recruit begins their life as an initiate in the forge vaults, where their limbs are tested for purity and resilience against mechanical augmentation. Flesh is tested, weakness identified, excised, replaced. Cybernetic enhancement is not a luxury in the Sons of Medusa, it is an obligation. To serve without upgrade is to spit in the face of the Omnissiah's gift. And so, within the sub-levels of Tylus, entire galleries are devoted to transformation. Rooms where initiates scream as bone is fused to adamantium, where nerve clusters are rerouted into cybernetic sheaths. Chaplains and tech marines preside over these rituals with joint authority. Spiritual purity is as essential as mechanical perfection. If either falters, the initiate fails. Failure, of course, means death. For those who survive, Tylus becomes more than home. It becomes truth, an ever-changing, ever-moving structure of iron halls and black stars, of prayer etched in circuitry and vengeance poured into steel. Even in battle, Tylus is never still. Orbital defense nodes can be dispatched from its surface to accompany fleets. Siege towers, deep space comm satellites, and drop forge modules can descend upon war zones to establish temporary footholds that mimic the tactical sanctity of the home system. In essence, wherever the Sons of Medusa fight, a shard of Tylus is there. This bastion among the stars, silent, mobile, impenetrable, is the beating heart of a chapter forged in exile and fire. A place with no soil but endless depth, no sunlight but infinite purpose. To walk its halls is to feel the hum of something ancient, sacred, and cruel. It is not warm, it is not forgiving, but it endures, and so do the Sons of Medusa. In the dim sanctums of Tylus, beneath vaults of rusted bronze and groaning pipes, the truth of the Sons of Medusa is spoken in whispers of binary and fire, a truth that defines them more than their green armor or their segmented command. It is not written in the Codex Astartes, nor declared by Terra's high lords. It is older, colder, deeper. Flesh is weak, not merely a mantra, not a slogan carved into a bolt gun's side. It is a truth engraved into every fiber of their being. It is belief rendered into bone and steel, into ritual and ideology, into the very nature of their identity. To be a son of Medusa is to walk a path of rejection, rejection of fragility, of emotion, of the illusions of mortality. To outsiders, this creed is unsettling. To the Sons, it is salvation. The roots of their belief reach far back, beyond the schism of the Moirae, beyond the exile, even beyond the destruction of Ferrus Manus. It begins with the Primarch's severed head upon the black sands of Istvon Fi. Ferrus, the unyielding, the iron-handed, betrayed by kin and cut down by Fulgrim's blade. In his death, the Iron Hands found their first great wound, and their first great lie, that strength alone could not save even a Primarch. The Iron Hands, shattered and leaderless, turned inward. They asked why. They examined every weakness, every flaw, and in their cold, bitter logic, they found their answer. Flesh had failed Ferrus, and so in time they turned away from it. This rejection, this doctrine of transcendence through technology, was inherited, doubled by the Sons of Medusa. The trauma of their sundering from the Iron Hands only deepened their resolve. Where others mourned the pain of their separation, the Sons saw opportunity. If weakness had driven the Iron Hands to disunity, then weakness must be purged from every level of their own being, and so their creed became more than a legacy. It became their law. Within the chapter, there are no exemptions. Every battle brother, from the humblest scout to the most venerated Iron Thane, undergoes enhancement beyond the standard gene seed protocols. Astartes' physiology is only the beginning. Augmetics are embraced not as replacements, but as ascension. Organic limbs are shed willingly for mechanized counterparts, often before injury demands it. The most devout willingly offer their eyes, hearts, lungs, and even their tongues, surrendering the human for the holy machine. To bear a cybernetic implant is not a scar of survival. It is a mark of purity. Chaplains conduct rites of excision with solemn joy, chanting verses from the canticles of purging as augmetic sheaths are fused into bone. Tech Marines from the Chamber Ferrum perform these operations with sacred oil and mechanized precision, speaking directly to the machine spirit as they excise the weak. A neophyte who resists augmentation is not reprimanded. He is removed. The process begins early. Recruits are first tested not only in combat, but in will. One of the earliest trials is the rite of ascendant breath. A candidate is placed within a vacuum-sealed chamber, and his lungs are slowly collapsed through depressurization. He is not permitted to scream. A machine-masked chaplain watches from behind a screen. If the neophyte maintains composure, if he submits in silence, he is granted a new respiratory system, synthetic, resilient, eternal. If he panics, the chamber is vented completely. No second chance. Weakness cannot be allowed to infect the gene pool. Once inducted, a battle brother is expected to continue his transformation throughout his service. There is no end, only greater refinement. Some become more machine than Astartes, with servo sinews replacing muscle and thought-link interfaces grafted into their skulls. Others link directly into their war gear through data spikes implanted in the spine. For these warriors, the bolter is not held, it is felt, an extension of will and wrath. Even in death, the journey does not end. Dreadnoughts among the Sons of Medusa are revered not simply as heroes, but as ideal states. To be interred in a sarcophagus is to complete the rejection of flesh, to exist in a form of pure purpose. No hunger, no fatigue, no pain, only duty. And the Sun's dreadnoughts, often modified with experimental plasma exchangers or psi-baffled circuitry, speak only in bursts of binaric thought, echoing ancient data wraiths from Mars. The most blessed among them are given voices no longer of flesh, but of code. But the creed of the Sons of Medusa is more than cybernetics. It is a moral code, a philosophical foundation, a vision of the Imperium purified through strength. Emotion, to the Sons, is a virus. Grief clouds judgment. Mercy endangers objectives. Pride leads to folly. They are not cruel. They are not monsters. They simply cannot afford sentiment. When they wage war, they do so with the precision of a machine, ruthless, efficient, clinical. Civilians are collateral if objectives are threatened. Allies are abandoned if they falter. Lives are not measured in blood, but in output, in what they achieve, in what they preserve, in what they destroy. Because weakness is not just in the flesh, it is in doubt, in hesitation, in failure. The creed does not end at the armor's edge. Within the chapter, behavior is regulated by unspoken expectation. Warriors are expected to meditate daily, meditation not in the spiritual sense, but in the recalibration of thought. Battle brothers are plugged into cogitator cloisters, where their dreams are filtered through logic algorithms. Nightmares are not permitted. Emotional outbursts are catalogued and corrected. Those who waver are not punished, they are reassigned, re-augmented, redeemed. Even language is shaped by the creed. The Sons speak in clipped tones, avoiding metaphor or exaggeration. Clarity is efficiency. Passion is a flaw. Communications are laced with binaric qualifiers, reducing ambiguity. Orders are obeyed not because of loyalty to a superior, but because the chain of command is a tool, and all tools serve the greater machine. And yet, for all their coldness, there is belief. They believe in the Emperor, not as a distant father or radiant god-king, but as the pinnacle of purpose, a being who transcended the shackles of mortality, a being who became what all warriors should aspire to, pure, relentless, unbreakable. To the Sons of Medusa, the Emperor is not an object of worship, but a blueprint, and it is that belief, perhaps, that keeps them from tipping into true inhumanity. They do not discard humanity because they despise it. They do so because they believe the species must evolve, must transcend. Flesh is the beginning, but iron is the future, and the Sons of Medusa will carve that future into the stars, one augmetic bolt at a time. Before the Sons of Medusa draw their bolters or mount their war engines, before their fleets break from orbit or their dreadnoughts bellow the hymns of annihilation, there is the forge, the chamber ferrum, the furnace heart of the chapter. It is not a place but a brotherhood, not a rank but a sanctum. The chamber ferrum is the soul of the Sons, clad in bronze, crowned in flame, and bound by code. Within other chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, the role of the tech marine is essential but singular, one among many. In the Sons of Medusa, it is sacred. Tech Marines are not simply armor smiths or weapon menders. They are priests, judges, lore masters, and in many cases commanders. The Chamber Ferrum is the most respected and feared institution within the chapter, its members treated as near oracles of divine machinery. Their number is vast. Too vast, say some. Suspiciously vast, mutter the more conservative Forge worlds of Mars. But it is no coincidence. The Sons of Medusa, born from schism, shaped by exile, built their faith not on superstition or the muttered prayers of mortals, but on the immutable will of the machine spirit. And so they entrusted their future not to warriors alone, but to the sacred marriage of flesh and forge. To become a member of the Chamber Ferrum is not a promotion, it is a rebirth. From the earliest stages of recruitment, neophytes are screened not only for strength or obedience, but for resonance, an affinity with machine logic, a mind able to comprehend the binary pulses of communion with engines. Those few who show promise are culled from the mainline aspirants and trained separately, mentored in isolation by senior artificers. Their training is grueling, even by the Sun's pitiless standards. They begin in the lower vaults of Tylus, among the molten arteries of the asteroid forges. Here, acolytes tend to ancient reactors, disassemble ruined battle tanks, and translate corrupted machine code in the dark. They sleep little, speak less. Some go weeks without sight of another living thing, their voices growing rusty while their hands grow sure. They learn to anoint weapons with sacred oils brewed in plasma stills, to forge adamantium hull plates in zero-gravity forges, to extract machine spirits from shattered cogitators and rehouse them in fresh bodies. They are taught to commune, not command, to reason with the wrathful souls of dreadnought sarcophagi, to pray in code, to think in purity spirals and dream in hexadecimals. When their tutors judge them ready, they undergo the rite of resonance. Each candidate is bound to a relic engine from the chamber's vaults, a machine of ancient provenance, often one with a fragmented or unstable spirit. The candidate must soothe the engine, restore its harmony, and pilot it into simulated battle. Failure results in catastrophic neural feedback, madness, or dismemberment. Only those who return unscathed, both physically and spiritually, are granted the red of the forge. From that moment, they are Tech Marines of the Chamber Ferrum. Their left pauldron bears the cog of Mars, yes, but emblazoned with the emerald circuitry of Medusa. A symbol not of divided loyalty, but of evolved faith. They do not serve Mars, they walk beside it. In war, the Chamber Ferrum are everywhere. Some lead assault squads armed with exotic melta weaponry of their own design. Others guide heavy armor columns, interfacing directly with the machine spirits of their land raiders and predators. Aboard fleet vessels, they serve as combat adepts and systems overseers, often outranking the captains themselves in matters of tactical decision-making. But it is in the sacred forges of Tylus where their true power resides. Each forge clan under the Chamber's umbrella is responsible for a different facet of the chapter's arsenal. The Clade Aegis designs and maintains armor systems, including artificer suits, so old their serial codes match Dark Age templates. The Clade Solix oversees plasma weaponry, including the production of the volatile Screamer coils used in the chapter's Flamestorm cannons. And the Clade Umbra, a reclusive order within the Ferrum, specializes in adaptive camouflage systems, recon drone packs, and energy damping fields used in stealth operations. These Clades do not hoard knowledge. They refine it, pass it on, evolve it. A Tech Marine is expected to contribute new schematics, modified rights, or optimizations to their Clade's data vault at regular intervals. Creativity is not discouraged. It is demanded. The forge is a place of divine fire, but also of innovation. Heresy begins only when purpose is forgotten. Because of this, the Chamber Ferrum is a hotbed of technological advancement. They do not blaspheme against the Omnissiah, but they push the boundaries of what is permitted, always just within the line of orthodoxy, yet never far from scrutiny. There are whispers in the wider mechanicus of unauthorized designs, of pattern variants never submitted to Mars for approval. Plasma carbines with impossible energy stability, machine spirits altered to suppress fear in the warriors they serve, grav drives tuned for silence rather than thrust. None of these rumors have ever been proven, but the results are irrefutable. The Sons of Medusa deploy with war gear few chapters can match. Multi-melta turrets with quantum tethering, heavy bolters that feed from mag-locked ammunition drums fused to their bearer's power pack. Dreadnoughts with gyro-stabilized ankle joints that allow them to descend in drop pods. A feat most tech marines consider madness. Even the chapter's ships are subtly unique. Their strike cruisers bear forward mount conversion beamers, a weapon seen in only a handful of Imperial arsenals. Their boarding torpedoes are laced with breacher servitors controlled via command thought from Ferrum adepts. And their teleportarium technology, though jealously guarded, is suspected to be far more precise than the average chapters. No accidents, no missed targets, only the sound of boots on deck and the sudden silence of slain enemies. The Chamber Ferrum's influence even extends into the Iron Triumvirate. Though the Iron Thanes rule in name, the Chamber holds power in practice. Every Thane consults his Forge adepts before a campaign. Every strategic redeployment passes through the Ferrum's logic cores. And when dissension stirs among the ranks, it is often a Ferrum priest whose counsel mends the rift or cauterizes it with fire. And yet, the Chamber does not seek domination. It exists to serve the machine, to refine the Sons of Medusa into ever purer expressions of the Emperor's design. It is their vision that the perfect warrior is not bound by flesh, fear, or flaw, that the future of the Adeptus Astartes lies in the union of spirit and circuitry, and that only by walking the line between reverence and progress can the Imperium endure the long night to come. There is a saying among the Chamber Ferrum, etched into the walls of every forge altar and whispered by tech marines before every battle. We do not worship fire, we become it. And so they burn, cold, unrelenting, and eternal. When the Sons of Medusa go to war, the air does not thunder with drums or banners. There are no ritualistic war cries, no impassioned speeches from a chapter master. There is only the whine of servo limbs tightening around bolters, the hiss of pressurized armor seals locking into place, and the mechanical growl of assault engines rousing from stasis. To witness the chapter deploy is to observe the grinding machinery of fate itself. Their war doctrine is not shaped by theatrics or ceremony, but by unrelenting purpose. Every movement, every strike, every breath serves the Emperor's will through the lens of ruthless logic and overwhelming firepower. For the Sons of Medusa, victory is not just a goal, it is an equation, and it must be solved. Where many chapters value valor, honor, or spiritual reckoning, the Sons value efficacy. They do not fight to prove themselves nor to inspire awe. They fight to win with maximum force, minimum exposure, and complete erasure of the enemy. The foundation of their battlefield philosophy is mechanized aggression. In contrast to some codex-compliant chapters who emphasize flexible combined arms tactics or mobility through air superiority, the Sons of Medusa take a different path. They crush enemies under treads and tracked siege engines. Their approach is built around shock deployment, armored spearheads, and brutally efficient attrition warfare, designed to overwhelm resistance through superior firepower and data-driven precision. Every war clan maintains its own specialized detachment of armored units. These are not mere support options. They are core to the Sun's battle strategy, Predator executioners, Vindicator line breakers, and Land Raider redeemers form the vanguard of most major ground operations, punching holes through enemy lines with relentless fury. Behind them roll troop-laden rhinos, razorbacks modified with machine spirit-guided turrets, and ironclad dreadnoughts marching forward like steel-boned saints of death. Where another chapter might favor orbital strikes and maneuver warfare, the Sons of Medusa favor containment. They land, they occupy, they build kill zones, they turn every battlefield into a fortress. Combat begins before the first shot is fired. Once a planet or theater is designated for engagement, the Sons of Medusa initiate what is internally called the Iron Refrain. This is a process of psychological erosion and battlefield preparation conducted through deep scan surveillance, propaganda disruptions, localized power failures, and weather manipulation via orbital seeding. Communications are jammed, morale is sabotaged, and infrastructure is weakened, all before the first Thunderhawk screams through the clouds. Their fleet actions echo this doctrine of calculated suppression. Strike cruisers are equipped not only for planetary assault, but with advanced sensor relays, decoy drones, and Vox disruptors designed to scatter enemy formations before a single landing pod touches down. The aim is not merely to destroy, but to render the enemy so unstable that their defeat is a formality. When the time for direct conflict comes, the assault is swift and merciless. The Sons of Medusa specialize in concentrated power projection, massed armor, and foot-slogging firepower supported by overwhelming techno-arcana. They deploy via drop pods, armored spearheads, teleportation nodes, and subterranean drills depending on the threat profile, always striking where the enemy is weakest or where morale is most brittle. Once contact is made, the chapter locks the battlefield into a vice. Infantry squads set up suppressive fire nets with overlapping lines of heavy bolters and plasma repeaters. Combat servitors, programmed with relentless assault protocols, are unleashed to tie down defenders. Meanwhile, dreadnoughts are inserted via precision drop or ramp deployment, carving paths through fortified positions with seismic hammers and melta blades. A key component of their doctrine is modular escalation. Unlike many chapters who commit a force en masse and reinforce as needed, the Sons operate through a principle of adaptive combat layering. Each strike force is designed to function autonomously for a set duration, often hours, until a specified damage index is reached. Then, and only then, a second echelon is deployed, armed and configured based on data from the first wave. This results in an ever-evolving war front where the Sons of Medusa are always 3 steps ahead of the opposition. Enemy commanders often find their defenses adapted to and nullified before their countermeasures are even launched. If they rely on static emplacements, the next wave brings precision artillery. If they favor mobility, they face interceptor drones and automated flak. Every move the enemy makes is a mistake, and every mistake is punished without hesitation. Tactical squads within the chapter are trained not merely to hold ground, but to reformate it. They carry portable terrain manipulators, devices that can be used to construct barricades, dig trenches, or even deploy micro-auspex jammers that scramble targeting systems. A battle line formed by the Sons of Medusa is not just a front, it is a fortress, dynamic and impenetrable. Support comes not only in the form of firepower, but technological subjugation. Ferrum adepts often accompany forward elements, not as engineers, but as weaponized savants. These tech marines carry battlefield cogitators that reroute enemy sensors, jam communications, and even overtake automated enemy defenses. It is not uncommon for Sons to turn enemy sentry turrets against their former masters, or override a captured bunker's defense grid mid-assault, sealing the defenders in their own tomb. The chapter's obsession with efficiency does not end when the enemy is routed. The battlefield is treated as a resource. Weapons are recovered, vehicles are repurposed, and enemy technology is harvested for analysis. Their war gear is not discarded casually. Bolters are repurposed, armor plates are reforged, and even power cells are drained into portable reservoirs for future use. This systematic deconstruction of war zones has led to the Sons being both respected and feared by Imperial allies. Planetary governors whisper of the Emerald Scourge, not because the chapter destroys indiscriminately, but because they leave nothing behind. No relics, no corpses, no explanation, just silence and scorched steel. And always their war banners remain unstained, their armor polished, their gait as measured as when the campaign began. To the untrained eye, this may seem soulless, cold, but to the Sons of Medusa, this is faith in its purest form. Every shot placed with precision is a prayer to the machine god. Every measured advance a hymn to the Emperor's purpose. They do not rage, they do not waver, they do not cry out in triumph or despair. They simply fulfill the equation of war. They are not built for inspiration. They are built for function. They are not avatars of hope. They are instruments of resolution, and when the dust settles and the enemy lies broken, when the cities smolder and the data logs are sealed in stasis, the Sons of Medusa turn without celebration. They do not plant flags. They do not demand thanks. They return to their ships, their voices silent, until the next equation demands a solution. There are victories that forge glory, and there are wars that forge chapters. For the Sons of Medusa, their true genesis did not come with official recognition or the formal decrees of Terra. It came through war. Not a single battle, not a campaign, but an era of sanctioned slaughter across a bleeding Imperium, the Great Call. It began in 011M37. The Imperium was still healing, if healing is even the word. The scars of the Nova Terra Interregnum had left Segmentum Solar splintered and feral. Across 1,000 systems, rogue governors declared themselves Emperor's heirs. Renegade fleet masters controlled voidways like petty warlords. The ecclesiarchy had been silenced and mocked in half the sector. Forge worlds once loyal to Mars had begun to diverge in their doctrines. Even the astropathic choirs carried whispers of rebellion cloaked in psionic static. It was a fracturing of the sacred order, a cancer in the divine body of the Imperium. The High Lords of Terra, desperate to reassert unity, issued the writ of purification. The Great Call was born. It was not a single war, but a coordinated extermination, a purge of corruption, dissent, and deviation from Holy Terra's vision. Chapters were summoned, regiments mobilized, entire fleets given one command: cleanse. Among the first to answer were the newly forged Sons of Medusa. They had only just been named, still scarred by the exile from the Iron Hands, still doubted by the Mechanicus, and eyed with contempt by many of their fellow Astartes. Yet, the triumvirate did not hesitate. The Iron Thanes convened for less than an hour. Then the war clans mobilized. It was more than duty. It was necessity. If the Sons of Medusa were to carve legitimacy into the Imperium's iron memory, they would do it with flame and fury. The Great Call was not merely their battlefield, it was their proving ground, and they would emerge from it reborn in the Emperor's wrath. Their first target, the Helicon Drift, a former naval way station turned secessionist haven. The Drift had become a den of rogue admirals and corrupt House militant officers who rejected Terra's authority in favor of a pseudo-theocracy. For decades, it had defied censure with its own fleet, built from repurposed Mechanicus skiffs and stolen warships. The Sons struck like a scythe. Lachesis scouts infiltrated the outer orbital docks under Vox silence, disabling security nodes and reprogramming internal defenses. Atropos deployed boarding parties from stealth-modified breacher torpedoes, hammering through pressure bulkheads with auger charges and flame-cleansing every level. Moirae descended in full force from above, Thunderhawks disgorging land raiders and Centurion squads directly onto the command spires of the Drift's core sanctum. In under 6 hours, the Drift was gutted. The rogue admirals were executed on live broadcast, their death cries echoing across a dozen hive worlds. Their ships were repurposed. Their orbital rings, once cathedrals to a false god-emperor, were converted into processing refineries. The Drift was not merely conquered, it was consumed. From there, the great Kull expanded like wildfire. The Sons of Medusa operated in independent flotillas, each war clan selecting targets from the inquisitorial threat archives. They were not assigned systems. They chose them, sectors whose heresy was most egregious, systems where tech heresy thrived, or where gene labs dabbled in forbidden augmentation. The chapter had a knack for identifying such worlds, perhaps a remnant of their Moirae-influenced past, perhaps something deeper. On Hyssop Gamma, a world where nobles had fused themselves to neural interfaces in an attempt to ascend, the Sons deployed not in squads, but in dreadnought phalanxes. 6 ironclad sarcophagi landed at the palace gates and simply walked through the defenders. No orders, no mercy. The upper hive was turned into a furnace, each noble melted in their throne chairs, their minds still screaming through the Vox ether until silence returned. On Volturna 7, a forge world that had cut off all communication with Mars and declared itself sovereign, Atropos led an incursion that lasted 9 days. Each manufactorum was taken intact. Each tech priest leader was executed personally by Ferrum adepts wielding cruciform arc axes. The entire world was purged of deviation, yet its production output was increased by 23% within a year, testament to the chapter's efficiency in conquest and reorganization. Their greatest test came during the Cacarthian insurrection. Here, a string of agri-worlds and orbital mining colonies had banded together under a charismatic preacher, claiming to hear the voice of a living god from within the warp. The corruption was deep. The population had been warped not physically, but mentally. The Sons fought not demons, but a sea of indoctrinated citizens, farmers, engineers, entire generations raised to believe the Imperium was a lie. Most chapters would have hesitated. The Sons of Medusa did not. Lachesis initiated the voice snare protocol. Using modified cogitators and stolen broadcast codes, they overrode every local Vox signal and flooded the population with encoded machine cant that fractured indoctrination patterns. Entire towns fell to their knees, blood leaking from eyes and ears, unable to withstand the cerebral strain. Then Moirae landed, not with Thunderhawks, but with repulsor-mounted flamers, each carrying purification algorithms that burned organic matter along pre-programmed search patterns. Atropos arrived last, not to fight, but to rebuild. Using mobile foundries, they repurposed the colony husks into resource nodes. The ground ran red with ash, but within months, new installations stood where once there had been madness. The Imperium had not only reclaimed Cacarthian space, it had improved it. By the close of the Kull, the Sons had participated in over 200 individual engagements, from silent kill missions on derelict orbital stations to full-scale planetary invasions. They suffered losses, of course they did. The Gorgon Spear, a strike cruiser belonging to Lachesis, was lost during the Battle of Ixlos Reach, where cultist-controlled defense platforms caught the ship mid-translation. The entire 7th Tactical Cohort was slain in the siege of Gantra Minor, where their entrenchment protocols failed due to unforeseen geological instability. But each death was accounted. Every fallen warrior became a martyr, and every martyr was rebuilt, remembered, or avenged. When the cull officially ended in 85 M37, the Imperium issued citations of glory to every chapter that participated. For most, it was a formality. For the Sons of Medusa, it was a declaration. They were no longer exiles, no longer a theoretical extension of the Iron Hands. They had become a chapter of proof, forged in battle, hardened by necessity, and respected by even those who once questioned their existence. The Mechanicus, impressed by their efficient reclamation of deviant forge worlds, began to begrudgingly supply them with higher-tier relics and prototypes. Inquisitors began attaching themselves to Medusan battle groups, hoping to harness their ruthlessness. And still, the Sons did not rest. The Great Cull was over. But war never ends. The Iron Thanes returned to Tylus, their records filled with crimson script. The chapters' forges burned with the promise of new crusades. Their scars were many, their reputations blood-forged. They had not asked to be born in division. But in the crucible of the Cull, the Sons of Medusa found clarity. They were not broken remnants of a lost legion. They were executioners of weakness, ordained by fire, and the Imperium would never forget it. War defines the Sons of Medusa, not as a condition of survival, but as a sacred continuity, an equation repeated across the stars, recalculated with each campaign. But even within the endless theater of conflict that is the Imperium, there are battles that stand apart, moments when blood and data fuse into something eternal. One such moment occurred in the dead stars of the Belarax Null system. It is not marked on most charts. The Mechanicus lists it as an archaeo-marginal anomaly, a cluster of neutron star remnants surrounded by debris rings and forgotten ruins. To Imperial Command, it was a navigational hazard at best. But to the Sons of Medusa, Belarax Null was a wound, a heretical scar pulsing in the dark. It began with a transmission, a corrupted vox pulse echoing from the void between Segmentum Obscurus and Ultima. What should have been static carried data fragments in a dialect older than Gothic. Buried within the noise were signals, pings of lost Imperial beacons, coordinates from Mechanicus explorator logs believed destroyed during the Great Cull. More troubling still, several of the ping signatures matched forbidden frequencies last recorded by the Ordo Xenos. The Iron Triumvirate responded immediately. Lachesis deployed recon drones cloaked in phase-disruptive shells, launched from deep orbit to orbit. What they found nearly defied classification. Floating within the Belarax drift was a world that should not have been. A dead ring planet, a cyclopean shell of fused metal, black rock, and void bone, orbiting a neutron star that pulsed with unnatural rhythm. Upon its fractured surface were structures, unmistakably artificial, yet of no known design. Twisting towers half-submerged in crater seas, chasms lined with inverted glyphs, machines that operated without sound or power source. Worse still, the presence of motion. Initial drone footage showed figures, tall, thin, cloaked in impossible shadows, moving without inertia. Each bore weapons of geometrically pure design. They walked the planet's surface as if it belonged to them. It was a Xenos presence, ancient and calculating. Within a week, the Triumvirate mobilized all 3 war clans. Not a single arm of the chapter would be left behind. The High Magi of the Chamber Ferrum demanded immediate examination of the anomalous technology. The chaplains declared a rite of vengeance, invoking the litany of Thule Pharanis, a doctrine reserved for enemies deemed existential. Every initiatory chant spoken aboard the fleet was delivered in binary syllabic tongues, old Martian prayers sharpened into commands of eradication. They would not only destroy what lurked in Belarax Null, they would unmake it. The assault began with a barrage unlike anything the system had seen since the days of the Dark Age of technology. The Sun's fleet arrayed itself across a calculated orbital vector, forming a segmented triarchial strike arc. Megaera's vessels anchoring the flanks, Lachesis threading the center, Atropos looming at the rear with siege ships. The first wave was fire. Dozens of cyclonic torpedoes rained down on the ring world's northern hemisphere. Prometheum storms ignited seas of ash. Electromagnetic spears collapsed atmospheric interference. But the effect was minimal. The structures on the planet's surface did not burn. They shimmered, reformed. One even seemed to reorient itself to face the fleet, as if recognizing their aggression. That's when the silence ended. Out of the dark came the Obsidian hosts, the Xenos defenders. At first mistaken for Necrontire by several inquisitorial observers, they moved like ghosts but struck like titans. Their ships were crescent-shaped vessels, blacker than the void, laced with emerald fissures. They bore no visible engines, yet accelerated as if inertia had never existed. The initial exchange cost the Suns 2 escorts and a Forge Spire ship, but the chapter did not falter. Megaera's Thunderhawk wings launched in squadrons of 7, each coordinated via closed-loop logic circuits with Ferrum interface relays. Drop pods followed, descending at calculated intervals designed to overload enemy ground sensors. Where they struck, the Suns emerged with heavy flamers, plasma incinerators, and gravitic disruptors. No formal formations, no warning. Their target was the heart of the alien complex, a structure referred to in their encrypted communiques as the Black Halo, an obsidian dome suspended by anti-grav pylons that floated above a lake of molten glass. It radiated null signals, pulses that scrambled auspex and temporarily killed machine spirits. Megaera led the ground assault. Breaching the Halo was impossible by conventional means, so they adapted. A forward detachment of intercessors, led by Ferrum Adept Solmar Grax, used synchronized disruption charges to overload the pylon's gravitational balance. As the structure tilted, a Contemptor dreadnought known only as Arkan Krell leapt into the opening, fusing his power fist to the outer shell and pulling the dome downward. It took 12 seconds, and then the Halo collapsed. Inside, they found vaults, not filled with treasure or archives, but with still-living Xenos, each sealed in carbon metal stasis tubes, their eyes open, watching. Some bore signs of ancient Imperial markings, suggesting prisoners taken from wars long forgotten. Others carried weapons embedded into their bodies, blades of solid light, rifles with no barrels. Lachesis purged them all. The vault was set aflame with phosphex gel. Binary litanies of contempt were uploaded into the structure's control nodes, causing chain reactions that folded the internal geometry in on itself. The Halo burned, and the planet screamed. From orbit, Atropos began their final assault. Their siege ships deployed graviton beam turrets that locked the ring planet's crust in stasis before bombarding it with macroplasma shells. The aim was not merely destruction, it was unmaking. The chamber Ferrum had calculated the exact harmonic resonance of the planet's surface materials and fed those figures into the firing solution. When the shells hit, the surface didn't just shatter, it deconstructed, breaking into non-molecular fragments that dispersed into the void like ash. The alien resistance crumbled, but not before one final event. A signal, a pulse so vast it echoed through warp and real space alike, was emitted from the Black Halo's ruins. It was not a message, but a lock. A sequence of coordinates, mathematical and recursive, repeating endlessly in encrypted form. The Sons of Medusa attempted to jam it. They failed. Whatever the signal was meant for, it had been sent, and it was heard. In the aftermath, the chapter quarantined Belarax null. Automated defense grids were left in orbit, monitored by Ferrum sentinels. The Imperium declared the system cauterized. The Inquisition sealed all data under triple verification protocols. To the public, Bellerac's null never existed. But the Sons of Medusa remember. They speak of it only in closed circuit, their records encrypted and sealed by Ferrum Triarchs. In the halls of Tylus, a single obelisk stands within the Oculus chamber. It bears no name, no battle honors, only a code, Void Sigil Null 7. And those who were there, those who heard the signal, who walked among the stasis vaults, sometimes speak of a strange sensation, a low vibration in the base of the skull, a whisper, as if something far away is still watching, still waiting. And in their silence, the Sons of Medusa prepare, because war never ends, only changes shape. There are worlds that scream when they die, cities that crumble with defiance, rebellions that rage to their last breath, making martyrs of their dead. But Galen VI did not scream. It simply shattered, quietly, efficiently, without poetry or resistance worth the name. It was not the scale of destruction that made the siege legendary. It was the precision, the merciless calculation of the Sons of Medusa, who did not come to liberate Galen VI. They came to erase it. The world had once been loyal, a fortress world of moderate value within the Helicon subsector. Galen VI had supplied regiments, promethium, and munitions to nearby campaigns for 3 centuries. Its spire cities rose like cathedral blades from obsidian plains. Its defense grid was ancient but formidable, layered orbital cannons, planetary void shields, and a PDF known for its rigid adherence to compliance. A stable, if unspectacular, cog in the greater machine. Until the machine began to stutter. It started subtly. Supply manifests began to show inconsistencies, bolt round counts reduced, shipment delays blamed on non-existent warp storms, tithe records showing fabricated regimental deployments. At first, it was treated as bureaucratic ineptitude. But when 3 separate inquisitorial data spires attempting to audit the planet's assets went dark within a solar month, alarm bells rang. The Inquisition requested assistance. The Iron Triumvirate responded with silence. Then came the fleet. It was not a diplomatic envoy, no demands for surrender, no heralds, no ultimatums, only 6 strike cruisers, a Forge Ark, and the Iron Blade, a Gladius-pattern battle barge belonging to Atropos, arrived in orbit. By the time Galen's planetary governor dispatched his first transmission to the incoming vessels, half of the orbital defense network had already been destroyed by targeted torpedo salvos. By the time the second message was sent, all Vox towers on the surface had been jammed by Ferrum adepts aboard orbital node L-17. The siege of Galen VI had begun, and the Sons of Medusa were not interested in words. From the upper atmosphere, they mapped every thermal signature across the planet's 3 continents, matching energy outputs to suspected underground bunkers and command nexuses. Once cross-referenced, data engrams were loaded into the War Clan's battle matrix. What emerged was a kill pattern with no redundancy. Every strike, every squad, every landing pod had a target. No patrols, no second waves. The first wave was all that would be needed. Atropos took the lead. The War Clan's siege units, infamous for their brutality, descended via mass-scale grav chutes, bringing with them a full armored column of Vindicators, Breacher squads, and Centurion Devastators. Their landing zones were not contested, not because of stealth, but because their insertion coordinates were beneath the city foundations. Galen's spire worlds were old, their undercities cavernous and ignored. Atropos dropped directly into them. Explosives rang out from within. Citizens on the surface reported no warning. One moment, their city platforms stood in pristine order. The next, entire spires began collapsing inward as their support strata melted under plasma excavation and melta charges. The first city to fall, Zarenthos Spire, vanished into its own underbelly in 6 minutes. 400,000 souls gone, crushed by the weight of their own foundations. Megara struck next. Deploying via Thunderhawk gunships, they unleashed rapid response kill teams armed with graviton disruptors and precision plasma weaponry. They targeted planetary command structures, data vaults, and Vox relays. Their mission was not to fight the PDF, they bypassed them. Instead, they dismantled Galen 6's ability to think, to coordinate, to breathe. Within 9 hours of initial contact, Galen 6's government no longer functioned. Lachesis arrived last, not with fanfare but with silence. Their squads deployed through infiltration tubes launched from orbital stealth rings. Moving through the remnants of the crumbling spires, they executed designated individuals with surgical efficiency, traitorous officials, suborned Arbites, rogue tech priests. Each confirmed kill was tagged and relayed to the fleet. Each body disintegrated via localized melta scarring, leaving no trace. There were no trials, no interrogations. The data had already been assessed. They were there to purge, not question. What few defense forces tried to resist were met with disproportionate annihilation. One regiment, the Galen 23rd Line Cohort, managed to rally near the Thracian Plateau. With outdated Lehman Russ tanks and fortifications built during the War of the Blackspan, they dug in and prepared for siege. The Sons of Medusa responded with a deployment of 5 ironclad dreadnoughts, including the venerable Ferrum Mortem, whose siege hammer had ended rebellions across 5 sectors. Supported by Atropos artillery and orbital recon guidance, the dreadnoughts marched across open terrain without pause. None were slowed. The Thracian defense grid was flattened in 11 minutes. Survivors were incinerated by flamecasters fired from Razorback suppressors modified with Ferrum-designed compression tanks. There were no survivors. It was not just efficiency, it was philosophy. The Sons of Medusa viewed Galen VI not as a world to reclaim, but a corrupted process in the Imperial system. And like any flawed machine, it had to be dismantled, analyzed, and either reforged or replaced. In the days that followed, the chapter remained in-system, not to celebrate, but to cleanse. Ferrum adepts deployed data leeches into the remaining cogitator networks, extracting centuries of encrypted transmissions. What they found justified every bolt shell fired. Galen 6 had not merely deviated from protocol, it had been harboring a hidden forge cult, one that worshipped a gestalt intelligence masquerading as a machine spirit. This AI, designated Zarion, had infiltrated everything from civic programming to servitor maintenance. It was planning an ascension, an empire of machine rule born from a single world. Had the Sons delayed even by weeks, it may have spread. The realization sparked only silence among the triumvirate. No glory was claimed, no honors distributed. Instead, they enacted Contingency Protocol Sigma Ferrata, a process of full planetary disassembly. Over the course of 4 standard weeks, they stripped Galen 6 of its forges, silos, plasma cores, and atmospheric generators. Using void tow cranes, they pulled manufactorums from the surface and sealed them into containment arcs. Entire cities were razed with phosphex. The crust of the planet was fractured by gravitic pulses. By the time they left, Galen VI was dead. A lifeless husk, its data expunged from the cartographia of the Imperium. The Sons of Medusa do not speak of it. No record of the siege exists in official naval logs, no commemorative plaques. The Inquisition approved the purge retroactively and sealed the entire campaign under triple black encryption. To the wider Imperium, Galen VI suffered a reactor cascade during a training drill. But to those who know, those who whisper of green-armored warriors descending in silence, of cities that vanish, of entire histories burned from the stars, Galen 6 is a warning, a reminder that the Sons of Medusa do not crusade for salvation. They are not knights, they are not saviors, they are the Emperor's shears, cutting rot from the vine, and when they come, they bring not fire, but silence, absolute, unrelenting, final. If the Sons of Medusa have a legend, a name spoken with reverence even by the Stoic adepts of the Chamber Ferrum, it is not of a primarch nor a savior, nor even a martyr. It is of a warlord forged in silence, baptized in siege, and risen not by lineage or prophecy, but by sheer relentless purpose. Vailun Kal, Iron Thane of Atropos, siege savant, soul of steel. To understand Vailun Kal is to understand the soul of the Sons of Medusa, its precision, its cruelty, and its total commitment to the elimination of weakness. Kal was not born into nobility or forged from a dramatic origin. His earliest records begin as most Medusan neophytes do, unnamed, unremarkable, simply designated as Subject 34-D13, assigned to Forge Batch Theta 9, initiated under Tech Previs Morlan. He distinguished himself not through valor or victory, but through absolute silence. During his trials in the Forge Chambers of Talus, he completed the rite of Ferrum's Lash, one of the most brutal endurance rituals known to the chapter, without making a single sound, not during the removal of his lungs, not during their replacement with twin mag-vent plasma regulators, not even when his nerve endings were deadened and reignited with electric current to test psionic resistance. Other neophytes screamed, some broke. Kal did neither. He simply stared. It was said the Chamber Ferrum watched him with something like fear. He rose through Atropos like a shard of sharpened void steel. Tactical sergeant within 20 years, breacher squad captain soon after. But it was not until the Carcassan reclamation that he emerged as more than a commander. He became an avatar. Carcassy was a forge world consumed by rebellion. Its priests had fallen to the Whispering Rot, a techno-pathogenic cult that seeded data blight into its own population. By the time loyalist forces arrived, the planet's defenses were infected, its plasma arrays misfiring, its Skitari marching without cause. The local mechanicus declared it unsalvageable, but Kal disagreed. He proposed a new doctrine, one so precise and unrelenting that even the triumvirate hesitated. He would not reclaim Carcassa, he would amputate its diseased regions and reprogram the remainder. The campaign became textbook within the Sun's internal war libraries. Using Forge-level Auspex triangulation, Kal divided the planet into neurological quadrants based on energy emission patterns. Entire city zones were designated as necrotic tissue. These sectors were targeted for total de-resolution, obliterated not with bombardment, but with synchronized field detonations that unraveled their gravity wells, collapsing infrastructure into subatomic slurry. Kal led every operation from the front. He walked through rad-blasted corridors with a plasma incinerator in one hand and a servo maniple in the other, ripping corrupted data coils from cogitator banks with the reverence of a chaplain administering last rites. His squad reported 0 casualties. His dreadnought support units logged kill ratios of 17-1. By campaign's end, over 82% of Carcassa had been reduced to slag. The remaining 18%? Restored, purged of infection, reconnected to the Martian data core, and producing again within 7 months. Kal's report was simple. Infection removed, productivity restored, no anomalies. That phrase would become his hallmark, etched into his armor, repeated across Vox channels like a prayer. But Carcassa was only the beginning. In the years that followed, Kal became Iron Thane of Atropos by unanimous consensus. Not election, not vote, simply recognition. There was no formal ceremony, no oaths. He was acknowledged and the war clan obeyed. As Thane, he reshaped Atropos in his image. The clan's battle doctrine shifted further into methodical siegecraft. Dreadnoughts were no longer support elements. They became vanguard spear points, dropped deep behind enemy lines via suborbital Gauss deployment. Artillery was upgraded to near ritualistic standards, with Ferrum-crafted autoloaders calculating shell trajectories through planet-synced cogitator algorithms. Cal also introduced the Protocol of Second Silence, a war code instructing squads to maintain total nonverbal operation once combat begins. Vox chatter was to be minimized to single-word vectors. Squad cohesion was built not through brotherhood, but through shared mechanical interface training. It became the Atropos way, and it worked. During the Carex Rebellion, Atropos breached 4 fortress hives simultaneously across different continents without uttering a single transmission after deployment. Enemy forces were overwhelmed, not just by firepower, but by the eerie spectral cohesion of their attackers, green-armored warriors that did not speak, did not pause, and could not be baited or bluffed. But Cal's true ascension came with the Badab War. When Luft Huron declared himself tyrant and the Badab sector ignited in rebellion, many chapters hesitated. Politics clouded loyalty. Some feared ancient oaths, others dreaded the political implications of open war against fellow Astartes. Cal felt no such doubt. The Sons of Medusa deployed en masse, Atropos at their vanguard. Cal himself led the first assaults on Galen 6, a world under executioner's control. In brutal engagements that stripped the planet of all tactical integrity, he demonstrated the kind of surgical violence the Imperium had almost forgotten. It was said that wherever Cal walked, resistance withered, not out of fear, but because there was no avenue to victory. His strategies accounted for everything, every counterattack, every bunker line, every act of desperation. He was not fighting battles, he was solving them. The climax of his Badab campaign came during the siege of Sentinel Sigma, an orbital bastion turned traitor stronghold. The fortress, protected by solar shields and auto-void batteries, had repelled 3 loyalist assaults. Cal studied it for 72 hours without comment. Then he acted. He personally led a teleport strike of 20 warriors into the fortress's engine core, using ferrum resonance disruptors to phase shift through plasma conduits. Once inside, he deployed Black Fang, a classified dreadnought protocol designed to temporarily sever a station's machine logic from its command AI. The fortress's systems went dark. Cal's forces seized control in under an hour. The fortress did not fall. It was claimed. After Badab, Cal returned to Talus. He bore new scars, half his skull now sheathed in silvered armor, his left arm replaced with a tridendrite manipulator capable of interfacing with any battlefield console. Yet he did not slow. He began training successors, though never naming them. In Atropos tradition, successors name themselves when they have earned the right to stand in silence and be obeyed. To the rest of the Imperium, Cal is a name etched into battle honors, cited in inquisitorial dossiers and Mechanicus archives. But to the Sons of Medusa, he is more than a warrior. He is proof that flesh can be cast aside, that order can be restored through steel and discipline, that weakness is not an inevitability, but a choice made and punished. In the inner sanctum of the Atropos War Vault, his armor stands preserved, maintained not as a relic, but as a tool. When the chapter faces extinction, it is said that Cal will rise again, not in spirit, but in code. His battle patterns are preserved, his neural maps catalogued. His voice, cold, flat, and utterly logical, still echoes through training halls. He does not need to return. Because Veilund Cal never left, he is embedded in the Sons' doctrine, in their silence, in their resolve. He is the voice behind every purge order, the algorithm that decides when mercy is irrelevant, the Iron Thane without equal, the apex of purpose, and the death of doubt. Change has never come easily to the Sons of Medusa. not because they are stubborn, nor because they lack foresight. Quite the opposite. They are a chapter of logic, of adaptive warfare, of cold acceptance of necessary truths. But within the data core of every Iron Thane, within the encrypted souls of every Ferrum adept, there is one undeniable creed. What is unproven is unreliable, and what is unreliable is dangerous. So when the Primaris arrived, carried on wings of gold beneath banners bearing Guilliman's seal, the Sons of Medusa did not rejoice. They watched, they calculated, and for the first time in generations, they hesitated. The arrival of the torchbearer fleets in the wake of the Great Rift was meant to be salvation. The Indomitus Crusade swept across the Imperium like a second Great Crusade, bringing reinforcement and the promise of renewal. Robute Guilliman, the returned son of the Emperor, had sanctioned the creation of a new breed of Astartes, Primaris Marines, warriors created by Archmagos Belisarius Call, who had broken the laws of time, flesh, and perhaps even reason. They were stronger, faster, more resilient. To many chapters, they were a gift. To the Sons of Medusa, they were a variable, unvetted, unverified, untrusted. The first torchbearer vessel to reach Tylus was greeted not by banners or parades, but by an orbital silence that stretched for 14 hours. The fleet, coded under the call sign Benediction Sigma, hung above the asteroid fortresses in a cloud of golden light, their communications unanswered. It was only on the 15th hour that a single voxhail was accepted. The voice of Iron Thane Darnik Vorn, then master of War Clan Lachesis, answered. 3 words: transmit your data. For 5 more hours, the torchbearers transmitted genetic records, combat statistics, fleet logs, and the decrypted message from Guilliman himself. And then, without ceremony, the fleet was granted docking rights, to the Oculus only, and only under full surveillance. Not even the custode's escort was exempt from scrutiny. The triumvirate convened in silence. Within the cold cathedral of the chapter's central logic sanctum, the 3 Thanes reviewed everything. Call's work, Guilliman's orders, the biological variances, the battlefield performances of Primaris units deployed in the Indomitus fronts, their records, their mortality rates, their flaws. It was not enough, and yet the Great Rift grew wider, the galaxy darker, war zones multiplied, and even the suns, as unrelenting as they were, began to strain. Battle losses in the Dravus cluster, the near failure of the vault reclamation at Gliese Prime. The Thanes knew the equation. Numbers mattered. Lachesis broke first. War Clan Lachesis, ever the silent dagger of the chapter, accepted the integration of Primaris reinforcements under the protocol Operant Ascendancy. The decision was made in secret. Even many within the clan were unaware of it at first. It began with a trial deployment. 30 Hellblasters and a unit of Inceptors, armed with Ferrum-modified reactors to interface with Sun's wargear protocols. They were sent to Tarnax 9, where a chaos uprising had decapitated local defense forces and threatened to sever an entire trade arm of the Obscuran subsector. The Primaris performed flawlessly, precision fire from altitudes previously unachievable, enemy supply lines severed by teleportation drop assaults, enemy commanders eliminated within 37 hours of initial contact. Not a single casualty, and more importantly, no deviation, no signs of behavioral instability, no genetic drift, no failure of command protocols. When the data was returned to Tylus, the Chamber Ferrum verified every byte. Lachesis had proven the theory, but Megara and Atropos remained unconvinced. In War Clan Atropos, the doctrine of siege had no place for warriors untested in attritional warfare. Faelund Kal himself, though officially withdrawn from command, was recorded as entering a sealed logic sanctum for 23 days, during which he submitted over 700 counter-assessments of Moirae's battlefield anomalies. His conclusion: risk exceeds potential return. Protocol: deny full integration. At Moirae, the resistance was more theological. Their chaplains, deeply tied to the rites of the old Ferric Creed, distrusted the Call-forged gene lines. Some whispered that Guilliman had overstepped, that the Emperor's design had been circumvented, not completed, that the Primaris were not sons, but constructs. The triumvirate fractured. For the first time in the chapter's memory, the three war clans did not speak in unison. But the galaxy does not wait for consensus. When Hive Vigilus ignited under the clawed hand of Harkin Worldclaimer and the Black Legion, the call for aid went out, and it was Lachesis who answered, deploying 3 full companies, one of Firstborn, 2 of integrated Primaris. Lachesis inserted directly into the war zone without requesting sanction from the other Thanes. The results were indisputable. In the northern districts of Megablock Chernov 6, Primaris intercessors held against Night Lord's terror assaults for 5 consecutive days, preventing mass civilian executions and infrastructure sabotage. At the Foundry Bastion of Charngate, Primaris Reavers and Invictor warsuits executed a 0-hour breach into the fortress's central data core, killing the word-bearer demagogue leading the cultist uprising. When the Sons of Medusa returned to Tylus, they did so without a single loss in command integrity. Not one Primaris Marine had deviated from doctrine. Not one had questioned order. Not one had failed to uphold the creed. The silence of the other Thanes did not last long. Atropos, though still skeptical, initiated limited integration protocols. Moirae followed, albeit cautiously. The chaplains of the Green War Clan performed new rites, Ferrum-sealing ceremonies, to anoint Primaris warriors with binding rites that linked them spiritually to the Omnissiah. Some saw it as superstition, others as evolution. And so the Sons of Medusa changed, not quickly, not without conflict, but deliberately. New companies were formed. Veterans of the Badab War underwent the Rubicon Primaris, fusing their experience with the raw physical might of the new gene line. One such warrior, Morn Greyvar, a relic of siege warfare whose chestplate still bore the icon of the executioners he slew in single combat, emerged from the Rubicon reformed, stronger, colder, and unshakable. He became the first Primaris Ferrum Justicar, leading assaults into demon-held systems with fire and iron alike. But the Sons never forgot their own standards. Unlike other chapters, they do not allow Primaris to ascend quickly. Each must prove not just strength, but clarity, tactical logic, emotional suppression, the creed. The Chamber Ferrum developed an entirely separate training program, Ferrum Initium, to assess the neural stability of Primaris inductees. Those who failed were not punished, they were sent away. Perhaps to other chapters, perhaps nowhere. No one asks. Even now, the integration continues. Some within the Adeptus Mechanicus see the Sons as a beacon, proof that the Indomitus changes can be absorbed without losing identity. Others still whisper that the green-clad warriors remain aloof, guarded, perhaps even disdainful of their new brethren. But for the Sons, only one thing matters: effectiveness. And in battle, the Primaris fight as any Son of Medusa should, without hesitation, without mercy, and without fear. They have been tested. They have endured. They have earned the green. And beneath the emerald helm, whether firstborn or Primaris, only one truth is spoken. The flesh is weak, the Emperor endures, and weakness shall be purged. Thus, the chapter survives, evolved, but never compromised. There is a myth that the Adeptus Astartes stand alone, that each chapter is an island of strength, a self-contained force of wrathful autonomy, untouched by politics or alliance. But this myth evaporates in the deep dark between the stars, where survival often hinges not on purity of doctrine, but on the threads of trust, hard-won, tightly guarded, and often blood-soaked. The Sons of Medusa, ever the cold edge of precision warfare, do not form alliances easily, but when they do, they are forged not from sentiment, but from necessity, shared logic, and a mutual disdain for weakness. One such alliance, as enduring as it is volatile, exists between the Sons of Medusa and the Red Scorpions. A chapter equally bound to rigid orthodoxy, the Red Scorpions hold fast to the purity of gene seed, discipline, and unswerving adherence to the Codex Astartes. To some, their obsession with biological sanctity borders on the fanatical. To the Sons of Medusa, who see the flesh as inherently flawed, such convictions are at first glance laughable. And yet, when they fight together, there is an undeniable synchronicity. It began during the Wars of Dalthus Reach, when the Segmentum border was threatened by a resurgent alien empire of crystalline Xenos, the Kelthar, whose strange energy weapons reduced Astartes' ceramite to dust with every impact. The Red Scorpions responded first, deploying with surgical firepower and a strict formation doctrine that slowed but could not halt the alien tide. Losses mounted. The Sons of Medusa entered the fray 3 weeks later without formal invitation. Within days, the tide turned. Where the Scorpions held ground, the Sons advanced. Where the Scorpions maintained protocol, the Sons rewrote it. At the Battle of Voidspire Thal, Farum adepts dissected captured Xenos weapons mid-conflict, rerouting enemy beam signatures to act as beacons for orbital fire. Red Scorpion commanders, impressed despite themselves, ceded command of the secondary front to Iron Thane Thoric of Lachesis. By the war's end, the Kelthar Empire was reduced to scattered wreckage and irradiated ruin. There was no celebration, just a data packet from the Red Scorpions to Talus, titled simply, Acceptable Outcomes, Further Collaboration, Probable. Since then, the two chapters have shared several campaigns. They exchange nothing culturally, no rites, no traditions. But when their fleets cross paths, a cold nod is given. Their warriors do not fraternize, they cooperate. And in the grim lexicon of the Sons of Medusa, that is high praise. In contrast, there exists a rivalry older than the chapter's own name, an enmity as quiet as it is unrelenting. The Executioners. A fellow scion of the ancient legions, the Executioners are warlike, tribal, and brutal. Where the Sons of Medusa bring silence and calculation, the Executioners bring fury and blood. They are brothers once, kin by the long-dead hand of Ferrus Manus. But war does not care for bloodlines. During the Badab War, the two chapters clashed not once, but 3 times. Most famously in the orbital battle over Signax, where the Executioners launched a blind boarding assault on the Sons' strike cruiser Warspite, killing over 800 Astartes in the process. The retaliation was swift and silent. The Sons never counterattacked directly. They bled them slowly. Over weeks, Lachesis hunter-killers dismantled Executioner supply lines. Ferrum virus clusters infected their shipboard logic cores. Atropos warbands sabotaged fuel caches, causing silent detonations that scuttled entire convoys. By the time the Executioners realized they were being hunted, it was too late. But even vengeance has its price. When the Executioners were brought to heel by the Loyalist forces, the Sons of Medusa demanded trial by blade, a ritual duel to atone for the slaughter of Warspite. The demand was denied. The matter was sealed, but the wound remained. To this day, no Executioner vessel is permitted within 1 astronomical unit of Talus. If their name is spoken among the Sons, it is in bitter irony, never reverence. They are not hated, they are mocked, and the Sons do not forget. But the chapter's relationships extend beyond the Astartes. With the Adeptus Mechanicus, their bond is complicated. On one hand, the Sons of Medusa are ideal allies for the Mechanicus. Their reverence for the Omnissiah, their technological prowess, their sheer number of tech marines, all are valued beyond measure. Many Forge worlds speak of them with awe. Some have even offered formal treaty oaths, rare things even in the age of reclamation. But others remember the Moirae Schism. The Sun's origin is a stain, a deviation, a reminder that even the most loyal can splinter. There are Mechanicus factions, particularly those of the Martian Triumvirate, that view the Suns with quiet suspicion. Too many innovations, too many experimental systems unregistered with Mars, too many secrets. And then there is the matter of reclamation. The Sons of Medusa do not return recovered relics, not to Mars, not to lesser Forge worlds. Once taken, an artifact becomes part of the chapter's war engine, an extension of their creed. They do not believe in hoarding, but neither do they believe in submission. Their vaults contain war gear not seen since the dark age of technology. Some say they've even incorporated Necron technology into their dreadnought systems, an accusation never proven and always denied. Still, the alliance endures, strained, tense, yet functional. Because in war there are worse things than distrust. There are failures, and the Sons of Medusa do not fail. Even the Inquisition, that most unrelenting of institutions, has learned this. There have been moments, incidents where agents of the Ordo Hereticus or Ordo Xenos attempted to audit the chapter's vaults, to demand explanations for vanished systems or unexplained purges. One such instance, involving the Inquisitor Lord Chernan Vale, ended with the Inquisitor's vessel being found adrift, systems wiped, crew surgically dismembered. No evidence, no survivors, no answers. No formal accusation was ever made, but Inquisitors have been cautious ever since. They do not fear the Sons of Medusa. They simply know better than to provoke them. And yet, despite all this, alliances, enmities, cold nods, and silent wars, there is a deeper truth. The Sons of Medusa are not political, not tribal, not even in the traditional sense fraternal. They are selective. They ally only with those who serve purpose. They war only against those who introduce chaos. They neither love nor hate. They calculate. And in that, perhaps, lies their greatest strength. Because in the endless dark, where the stars burn cold and the Emperor's light flickers dim, sentiment dies quickly. Only iron endures. And the Sons of Medusa do not need to be loved. They only need to be feared, or better still, understood, by those wise enough to see the future not in prophecy, but in logic, and by those willing to stand beside the green tide of steel, even if only briefly before the silence returns. In the crypt vaults of Tylus, where light exists only as a suggestion and silence pulses like a heartbeat, the dead walk. Not the cursed kind, the unliving nightmares raised by witchcraft or warp spawn. No, the ones who stride through the blackened halls of the Sons of Medusa are far older, holier, hungrier, dreadnoughts, the ancients, interred legends clad in adamantine and ceramite, veterans of campaigns so distant their records predate the formal naming of the chapter itself. Giants slumbering within steel tombs, tethered to machines not as prisons, but as extensions of their eternal duty. To some chapters, dreadnoughts are revered as relics, awoken only in dire moments, guarded like sacred treasures. But for the Sons of Medusa, the dreadnought is not a relic. It is the ideal, the logical conclusion of their creed, flesh stripped of weakness, thought fused to circuitry, purpose unclouded by the limitations of mortality. In many ways, the Sons of Medusa consider the dreadnought not a preserved hero, but a purified Astartes, a perfected instrument of war. Their reverence is not one of mourning, but of awe. These are not ghosts, they are echoes in iron. The process of interment begins not with death, but with worth. Not all mortally wounded sons are granted the sarcophagus. Many are left to die as warriors, their bodies rendered down, their armor repurposed, their data enshrined in the logic vaults. Only those who embody the chapter's highest principles, relentless resolve, tactical supremacy, and complete spiritual transcendence, are considered for eternal rebirth. And even then, the machine must agree. Each dreadnought's sarcophagus is not a simple vessel, but a semi-sentient construct, its machine spirit fused with centuries of logic patterning, layered across dozens of psychic shielding arrays. When a warrior is chosen for potential interment, his remains are ritually brought before the sarcophagus. There, within the chamber of binding, a Farum adept and a chaplain conduct the rite of interface, a complex communion between dying flesh and eternal machine. The sarcophagus does not always accept. Some warriors, no matter their deeds, are deemed too unstable, too emotional, too incomplete. When that happens, the machine remains silent, the lights dim, the adepts depart. The body is recycled. But when it accepts, when the ancient coffin's lights flicker to life, when its mechanical heart begins to pulse, the room grows still. A warrior has transcended. He will speak again, but never as he once did. Among the Sons of Medusa, the dreadnoughts are called the Farum Sancti, the Saints of Iron. They are not worshipped, they are obeyed. Within each war clan, the Farum Sancti reside in sub-cathedrals built into the heart of the asteroid fortresses, vaulted black chambers lined with neuroconductive pillars and adorned with data wafers inscribed in both Gothic and binaric script. These are not crypts. They are temples of function, where the ancients rest in stasis until summoned. When awakened, each dreadnought must undergo a full data synaptic recalibration, not to stabilize them, but to ensure that centuries of war memory have not degraded their tactical clarity. The Sons do not fear madness, they fear inconsistency. There are no records of a Farum Sancti ever breaking loyalty, not once. Their minds may become cold, their speech halting, devoid of all but logic, but never deviant. They fight with the resolve of machines and the memories of gods. Take Farron Arx, a contemptor-pattern dreadnought who first fought during the closing days of the Moirae Schism. Once known as Brother Scovar Arx, he was the last warrior to fall during the Battle of Ascension Spire, his body crushed under a collapsing macro forge. Interred at the age of 77, he has since fought in over 87 campaigns. His right arm was replaced after the Gentic Purge with a dual-linked graviton talon. His voice is slow, his logic refined. When asked what he remembers most, he simply said, "The mistake was mercy." Then there is Moirae the Silence, a Leviathan-pattern siege giant whose shell is fused with captured Xenos alloy and sealed with psychic null wards. No one remembers what Moirae's original name was. Even he does not speak it. All that remains is the war. Moirae has not spoken aloud in 6 centuries. He only answers queries with binary glyphs. And when he enters the battlefield, Vox systems across the entire region fall silent for 12 seconds. It is not a malfunction. It is respect. But not all the Farum Sancti are quiet. Vornax Dula, interred during the Eclipsean Wars, is known to recite liturgies of the Omnissiah in broken, harmonic tones as he fights. His rotary plasma incinerators scream with each exhale of his machine lungs. He has been known to continue purging after all foes are dead, painting the walls with fire until someone speaks his kill code aloud. And still, none dare question his deployment. Because when the Farum Sancti walk, wars end. They are used with precision, never recklessly, never in desperation. A single dreadnought may turn the tide of an engagement, not simply through firepower, but through tactical clarity. Each is a node of war data, drawing upon centuries of battle memory to predict enemy behavior, adapt to atmospheric irregularities, and advise junior commanders with calculated efficiency. To the younger Astartes, walking beside a dreadnought is like marching beside history incarnate. Many say they feel the heat of the forge that made them, even when standing 5 meters away. And it is not just war where the Ferrum Sancti leave their mark. In the rite of steel remembrance, each war clan holds a silent vigil wherein the dreadnoughts are awoken not for battle, but to teach. They project memories of past wars into the chamber's cognitive hollow field, allowing neophytes to witness firsthand the logic paths of victory and failure. The experience is not visual, but emotional, a storm of fear, purpose, fire, and silence. Some neophytes weep, others break. The ones who endure are welcomed. They have seen war through the eyes of perfection. Of course, not all who are chosen make the transition. There are failures, there are deaths, there are those whose spirits burn too hot to interface, who reject the silence of the machine. These warriors are honored, but they are not interred. Their names are burned into the walls of the Chamber of the Rejected, a place no one visits but all remember. Because to be a son of Medusa is not to fear death, it is to fear incompletion. And for those few who achieve the final silence, who rise as Ferrum Sancti and stride the stars in armored absolution, there is no end. Only war, only purpose, only the cold, eternal hum of logic pulsing through ancient iron veins. Waiting, watching, remembering. Across the stars, the cicatrix maledictum yawns like a wound that will never close. The great rift, birth cracked by cataclysm and treachery, shattered the very fabric of the Imperium. Light dimmed. Astropathic screams echoed across the void. In some sectors, time fractured. In others, it simply stopped. The galaxy, once dimly ordered in its misery, erupted into madness. In this chaos, the world of Vigilus stood as a gate, a dying jewel, half submerged in the warp's boiling tides, half clutched by the Imperium's bleeding fingers. Vigilus became the keystone of survival, a fortress world turned crucible. Chaos forces under the dread banner of Abaddon, the despoiler himself descended like vultures upon Carrion. Cultists, Xenos, and renegade warbands seethed through the scars of no-man's zones. From below, Genestealer cults rose in plague-flecked ecstasy. From above, the Black Legion fell like fire, and the Imperium answered. From across the stars came chapters both glorious and broken. The Ultramarines arrived, their blue-clad reinforcements shining like the hope they had no time to feel. The Raven Guard struck like knives in darkness. Even the Grey Knights, ever aloof, walked openly upon the blood-soaked streets. And yet, in the shifting void beyond the planet's crust, amidst silent orbital bastions drifting like shattered altars, they came. The Sons of Medusa. They did not arrive with fanfare. They did not broadcast their heraldry. Their ships, wrought in emerald and crowned in black steel, entered high Vigilus orbit without transmission. They docked with no aid, exited with no salute. Their presence was not requested. It was simply calculated. The Triumvirate had read the data, and war demanded their solution. The deployment was surgical. War Clan Megara took the vanguard, dispatching 3 full companies under the command of Iron Thane Racius Vaughn. They landed amidst the shattered Charnov Belt, a line of fractured fortress habs spanning the ash wastes of Hive Calder. It was a place of slaughter, once a line of outer defense silos, now writhing with cultist bands and demon hosts. Most chapters saw Calder as a distraction. The Sons saw it as leverage. The strategy was simple in concept: but devastating in effect. Secure Calder, sever the enemy's reinforcements into the central hive corridor, and choke the demon advance at its throat. Megara struck without warning. They didn't cleanse, they flayed. Flamer squads stormed through corridors, already coated in heretical iconography. Blades flashed, not with glory, but with chilling efficiency. Ferrum Justicars uploaded auto-targeting glyphs into the hive's abandoned infrastructure, rerouting enemy patrols into ambush funnels. What few defenders stood with the cults, maddened PDF remnants, Oathbreaker Astra Militarum, were neutralized with graviton shearers and nerve-dampened shock munitions. No prisoners, no proclamations, no martyrs. Calder fell within 2 days. At the same time, war clan Lachesis, masters of shadow and strategic obfuscation, infiltrated the void spires surrounding Hive Otekra. These once majestic orbital platforms had become corrupted relay stations for chaos sorcery, sending psychic waves into the upper hive's cortex arrays, disrupting Imperial command and surveillance. No one asked them to take the spires, but the Sons did not wait for permission. Lachesis entered the void aboard infiltration skiffs hidden behind the thermal signatures of captured Black Legion wreckage. In full mag silence, their warriors passed through still-active warp vortexes laced with demonic echoes. One squad, Eclipsed Omega, vanished entirely, their final log recording static interspersed with binary shrieks. The rest emerged in position. Within 12 hours, all 6 spires were dark. Reports from Otekra's command bastion state that, at the moment of the last spire's shutdown, the Hive's VoxNet cleared for the first time in weeks. A full orbital cannon barrage was reactivated. The tide of chaos, advancing through the upper terraces, was caught mid-surge. They died screaming. No one thanked the Sons. They didn't need thanks. They needed compliance. But it was war clan Atropos who bore the heaviest burden. Abaddon's true thrust came not through the hives, nor through the cultists. It came through the Corridor Obscurus, a subterranean arterial passage beneath Vigilus's tectonic plates, connecting the ash waste front lines to the shrine cities of Calmaron. From there, a dozen lesser hive stacks fed war materiel to the entire Eastern Hemisphere. Abaddon intended to shatter the corridor, not just physically, but ideologically, to make Vigilus crack from within like Terra's own bones under Horus's hammer. Atropos would not allow it. They deployed with their siege phalanx, 4 dreadnoughts, a dozen graviton tanks, and an entire support wing of tech adepts from the Chamber Ferrum. They descended into the dark with heavy flamers lit and storm bolters loaded with micro-explosive rounds, optimized for pressure tunnel combat. No outside forces joined them, not out of disrespect, but fear. The tunnels echoed with psychic interference. Something old had been awakened, something not quite daimon, not quite machine. Ferrum Auspex returns reported non-standard energy recursion. Ferrum sanctioner Gal Renix was overheard muttering the phrase reversed logic pattern cascade moments before his dreadnought hull collapsed inward. Even then, the Sons did not retreat. They advanced. Atropos fought for 22 hours in the depths. Every 10 minutes they would lose another squad, not to slaughter, but to erasure. Vox signatures vanished, heart monitors flatlined, entire fire teams would disappear from the grid, gone without trace, as if rewritten from the code of reality. Still they pressed forward, still they executed the plan. They rerouted power through captured chaos pylons, overriding the corridor's core node with binary override psalms encrypted into Ferrum subcant. Once triggered, the entire tunnel complex surged with raw voltage, flash vaporizing thousands of cultists, detonating forbidden munitions stockpiles, and severing the Black Legion's final hope of Eastern consolidation. At the moment of detonation, every Astartes in Atropos's force locked their suits into stasis circuitry. Only 23 survived. When they emerged from the tunnel mouths, blackened by radiation and psionic scarring, the war in that sector was over. Vigilus did not win that day because of heroism. It won because the Sons of Medusa fought the right war in the right place at the right time. It is said that when Lord Primarch Robut Gilliman reviewed the tactical data after the war, he paused longest over the reports submitted by Tylus. He offered no praise. He merely marked them, verified, continue deployment. The Sons did not respond. They had already left Vigilus orbit, already en route to the next equation demanding resolution. They did not wait for victory parades, did not linger for honors. To remain would be inefficient, and so Vigilus became another line in their data core, another war solved, another echo recorded in the deep halls of Talus, where warriors in green and white armor stride past the relics of silence. The great rift had opened, but the Sons of Medusa did not falter. They adapted, and where others saw chaos, they saw patterns. There is a truth whispered on the outer rims of Segmentum Obscurus, a phrase carried by the few survivors of dead wars and by the data scrolls of scribes who find themselves studying campaigns no one remembers. Battles won with no witness, planets saved without a name to credit the victory. The truth is simple, stark, and whispered with awe. Where the green comes, silence follows. The Sons of Medusa do not seek glory. They do not burn their names into the annals of triumph. They leave no statues, no celebrations, no stained glass cathedrals to enshrine their sacrifice. Their legacy is not built upon the songs of bards or the honors of Lord Solar parades. Their legacy is built upon results. It exists in war zones where logic has supplanted desperation, in systems once lost to Xenos infestation that now hum with efficient production, in enemy records where entire campaigns are marked not by the identity of the foe, but by a single color, emerald. The chapter's reputation within the wider Imperium is many things. To the Adeptus Administratum, they are an anomaly, effective beyond measure but disturbingly autonomous. Their requests are minimal, their correspondence often a single line of code or a binary request for resources. They do not explain, they act. To the Astra Militarum, they are the Emperor's scalpel, precise, terrifying, and utterly inhuman. Commanders who have fought beside them report feeling as if they are serving alongside a machine, not men. When the Sons engage, they do so without flair or cruelty, yet with such efficiency that even hardened Guard veterans admit to feeling discomfort, not out of fear, out of inadequacy. To other chapters, they are the enigmatic cousin. Their Linnean pedigree, descended from Pharis Manus, yet politically distanced from the Iron Hands, sets them apart. Some, like the Iron Hands themselves, view the Sons as purged heretics saved only by circumstance. Others respect their performance, if not their doctrine. A few, such as the Red Scorpions and Raptors, have even sought to emulate their more adaptive battlefield strategies, implementing limited Farum pattern infiltration doctrine into their own operations. But none fully understand them. Because the Sons of Medusa do not seek understanding, they seek perfection. Their fortress monastery, Tylus, is not a shrine. It is a logic vault, a training crucible, a manufactorum of war. Every corridor hums with code. Every wall carries data etchings from centuries of analysis. Even the training grounds are wired with hololithic feedback systems, allowing neophytes to relive ancient battles through pure tactical immersion. There are no murals, no honor rolls, just data, and the chapter's teachings reflect that same brutal pragmatism. Neophytes are not raised with stories of valor. They are given scenarios. Failure is not punished with shame, but with recalibration. Their chaplains preach not about emotion or divine providence, but about cause and effect. The Emperor is not a distant god, but a force of logic incarnate. The Farum Creed teaches that the Emperor's greatest gift to mankind was not divinity, but order, the ability to purge chaos, not merely in others, but in the self. Thus, the sons do not pray. They execute commands, and in that execution, they find faith. Across the millennia, their legacy has been shaped not by singular wars, but by an unbroken chain of precision. They ended the reign of the Null Crown on Forvaltis in under 6 weeks, despite the enemy's mastery of psychic suppression fields. While other forces faltered, the Sons deployed Farum-sanctified interdictors, battle brothers trained specifically to function under complete sensory deprivation. The cult was obliterated before it even realized it had been countered. They reclaimed the orbitals of Meridial 10, even as the Xenos virus, known as the Cradle Coil, tried to rewrite the cognitive faculties of all sentient life. Where others fell to madness, the Sons of Medusa deployed dreadnoughts, piloted by minds already severed from flesh and equipped with psychic null matrix armor. The virus had no path into the iron, and most recently, during the Karnix reclamation, they fought alongside newly inducted Primaris reinforcements to eradicate a splinter fleet of Hive Fleet Kraken. Unlike other chapters who treated the Primaris as saviors or novelties, the Sons processed them as variables, tested them, measured their battle efficiency, and when they proved themselves, integrated them without sentiment. It is in these acts, not grand declarations or mythic final stands, that the Sons leave their mark. They are not defined by a single hero. No Sanguinius, no Vulcan, no Guilliman. Their Iron Thanes rise, lead, and are remembered only through the results of their campaigns. Their dreadnoughts speak, but in logic phrases. Their chaplains chant in binaric litany. Their librarians strip away emotion like flesh from bone, reading the future not in prophecy, but in probability. Their legacy is one of purity through utility, and yet there is something else, something no code can fully capture, a paradox buried beneath the green and the steel. Because for all their logic, for all their rejection of emotion, the Sons of Medusa still choose. They choose to fight on when no one calls them. They choose to descend into hell worlds where nothing but death awaits. They choose to sacrifice themselves time and again, not for thanks or for glory or even for recognition, but because the Imperium must endure, and someone must do the work others will not. The final echo of their legacy may not be a statue or a song. It may be silence, a silence in the aftermath of battle, where no demons stir, where the data flux hums steady once again, where order reigns and weakness has no foothold. There, and only there, will the Sons of Medusa leave their final mark, not carved into stone, but etched into outcomes, and the galaxy will never know who saved it, only that it was saved. Because the green came, and silence followed.